Okay, look, it's definitely recording. We're good to go. Best buys for round 17. And the guys that have been brought in the most are Kiraz at over 4% and Fainu are there at 3%, which is a big number and does make sense. So you'll probably see in the top 1,000 over 200 bring-ins, potentially 3 to 4, 500 from someone like Kiraz. And then you have Walsh at 1.94 and Latrell Mitchell at 1.23. So those guys and Fainu will go through later in the video because we'll go from hooker down through to wing fullback with a few of those cash cows at the end. Jed Stuart, Pappenhausen, Preston, all 0.8 and above. So we'll get into all those guys as we roll through. Kicking off with Kurt Donoghue with the half hooker tag. Priced at 41 now, that's kind of the main worry. You know, you could have got him the last few weeks at 474 or 514 and did move to centre where he got that try assist in this one. Tackle numbers are good. Running meters are pretty solid as well. You do need him to average 50 going forward for I think it to be worth it. Otherwise, in half and hooker, you have Aaron Clark that'll help you in 19. Kurt misses 18 and 21. Do you want to get another mid-range guy that, yes, is making some money, but he could be like a 17th, 16th type of man for the remainder of the season, post round sort of 19? Is that someone you want, or do you want to spend a little bit more or go a lot cheaper so you can have that cash available to go to the top guns a little bit later in the season, like Payne Haas and the rest there? So that's kind of the question with Kurt. B.Brailey's a bit of a different story at 375. He has a much better chance of making some good cash and can be that mid to late season cash cow that you may want. With that hooking position though, if you've got Aaron Clark, does this kind of become a situation where Brailey is just sitting there and not playing in round 19, or to use Clark as a mid for round 19? These are a couple of things to think of there. With Brailey, like, he can definitely make some money. Does he keep the spot? With Leo Thompson coming back soon, does Crossland stay at 13, given that situation's worked out all right, and Brailey's been generally scoring pretty good there at hooker and playing some decent footy, which we know he can do. You know, across his career, he's like a 48 guy, 46 here in over 50 minutes with 71.7 in that one. And this year, he's had 43 in 52 minutes, but then a 58, a 51, and a 54, all in 70 plus. So we know what he can do. Priced at 28, he's the interesting one. If you don't need someone for next week, something to think about. And then a little bit later in round 22 as well. But it's more thinking around the cash generation that you could get, knowing his consistency and ability to score 40 to 55 here on a regular basis, priced at 28. It can go up very quickly for someone like Brailey. As you can see here, it went down fairly quick. He was 408 and then went down to 312 there, and he's gone back to 375, and that will continue to jump with this low break even if he keeps hitting 50. So an interesting guy, not at full cash down value, but is someone that could be a scorer week to week if he keeps the spot. Damien Cook at hooker at 619k, and guys, I will put timestamps in here. Hopefully you can see them at the bottom by the time the video comes out, and if not, it'll be within 10 to 15 minutes or so. Cookie priced at 46. The minutes are still the worry there for him. Last week, last game, he did really well, got the 66, but it was in 56 minutes, so he needed big tackle numbers and he needed that try, which we know he can do, but he'll be volatile week to week. He could score like a high 30s in that type of minutes. There'll be other games where there's injuries and he'll go out to the centres, or if something's not right in the middle forwards, maybe he plays there a little bit more and Little goes to 9. So there's a few different ways that they can play this, but I still think he's the best hooker to buy that has a chance of being a keeper. Now, it's a 47 average this year. There will be games that he could play more minutes. If Little gets injured, Cook becomes one of the top tier hookers. So there's a few things to think about with him. But looking at that position, if you need someone for round 18, I still think he's the best. I'd buy him over Tavanga right now, and you could go cheaper to like a Benaya, but it still feels a bit gross when he's not really going to make much cash. And so Cook's still the best, but it's still a gross position and not one that you want to invest too heavily on when you've got guys like Clark and then Watson and Grant to return a little bit later. Reed, he's like second best option right now, but minutes are a little bit up and down the last 3 weeks anyway. 68, 57, and 76 in that final one. 47 and 50 is coming off. So, and then generally since round 9, he's been pretty solid, with 36 being his low, 56 being the high. You can definitely see him hitting somewhere in the 50s for the next few weeks, but then he's definitely not a keeper long term. This game of rest would have been helpful for him, and you can see there, having that rest in 13, these last 2 weeks have been better for him as well. Tackle numbers have been better. Missed tackles, 5 last week, but he made 57. So he's the pod type of play if you need someone for 18 and 19, or at least 18 there, and should be able to do a job for you, but then would have to be sold most likely, which is the annoying part. Whereas Cook, I think, has more of a chance of being that keeper. Now, if you're set for round 18, I wanted to mention Brailey just because it feels like he's turned a new leaf and he's gone 89 into 68. So should continue to go up in price for a little bit, but does he settle back into the high 40s to mid 40s and bring that average back down that he's got up at 52 with those 2 really big scores the last 2 weeks, with 2 line breaks the week before and then a line break try last week, and both of those with 50 plus tackles, which he's only done a few times before. 3 times before these last 2 weeks. For the whole season, he's gone 50 plus. So it feels like the last 2 weeks have been winning scores for him. You did see in round 1 and 2 a 62 and a 52 before going into the 40s. So he's every chance to go back to that. If you need one for a guy for round 18, then it doesn't really help you. And if you got Aaron Clark, it doesn't really help you either. So that's the Brailey situation, but I just thought I'd mention. A few people are still looking at Payne Haas, and apparently it's back issues that he had early on in the year. It's not hamstring or groin or quad, whatever's been mentioned. NRL Physio said. So at 890k, he does miss round 18 and he misses 20. So you're going to get likely, definitely this week, a good score, you'd hope. And then probably round 19 for a decent score as well. But we have seen a 40 odd after round 12. So in round 13 there. And then you got the 100 last week in the same minutes. So it's rocks and diamonds as to what you're going to get post-origin. And missing 2 of the next 4 weeks. I'm not happy, but I'm going to let him go until round 21 against Parramatta and get him back then. That's wild. Did he get brought in last week? I saw he was up 58% for top 1,000 and then he's back to 64. So I don't know how that one worked out. But anyway, I was like, we've kind of got away with it a little bit, but there you go. So still owned by plenty. If you're in a situation like myself, I'm holding off, basically. But you can buy, and I'm seeing a few people bring him in. Tallis Duncan, I still think it's an okay price point. And now I personally would probably pick him over Kurt Donoghue. Again, if you're set for round 18, then Kurt could be the play. But Tallis seems like he's doing it in multiple ways there. I actually dropped down to 51. 58, 72, and 51. He's building a good tackle base. Only missed 4 in that time. Basically almost making 120. He's got tackle breaks in his game. He's got the meters gained near the 100 mark as an average, which is good. And just the negatives are pretty low. So if he can get almost 50 in base, then you'll have the odd game like in round 15 where he can score a try. So I still think Tallis is a decent bring in. Should be able to get close to a 50 average, it looks like right now. And is it the correct time to ride the hot hand? That could be the call there. And if you need someone for 18, he's a good guy to get at mid-range. Toby Couchman, 682. He's getting down to a decent price there of 51 and 682 with the dual. Now, I'm expecting this week him to play some middle minutes, which will be good. He scores so much better in that time. And you can see here he's a top-tier keeper through this first 9 rounds and then came back and played well on the edge, got some tackle breaks, got the run meters, but he wasn't able to pick that, those good, really, really good stats the last 2 weeks, and 54 and 47. So a little bit down, but if you're getting him priced at 51, it's a really good number now compared to what it was a few weeks ago when he was in the high 700s at 773 before the injury. So you get that discount now and he'll eventually move himself back into the ideal role just in the middle. But I think a little bit of edge and then a decent amount of middle will be great. We just don't know this week how many minutes that will be. So we'll have to wait and see. Post this game to review the footage and see where he ends up. Okay, Kolomatangi's still being brought in by a couple of people that have missed out. but mainly everyone has him. But I really just wanted to take this second to mention there's a probably 50-50 chance I think he makes this Origin side, or at least is in the top 18, which would be hurtful for our squads. But it's just something to monitor for that week. And if you are looking at selling guys that play mid or edge in round 18, just be aware of that when you are, for someone like Keon being a chance to play in the Origin setup. Tapine's been brought in by a few people. I would actually hold off on this one. There's better mids, especially if we're going to stay around this 50 minutes. There are better mids that you can purchase than Tapine, just for the fact of those minutes. And then post-Origin, he has the buy in round 19, and then same in 24. So having two missed games there for a very high-priced position and an important position is not ideal, I don't think. So if you don't own yet, don't buy. If you own, just hold, see what happens next week, and then make your decision from there with Joey T. But most likely a 70% hold all season, but definitely not a buy right now, I don't think. Had a few people ask me about Jack de Belin. He's actually had a really good last few games there, 60, 51, 52, and 50. But you look at those interchange minutes, and before he moved into lock roll last week, he was 32, 48, 40, 34 minutes, 52. Jaden Stewart does return there. But the big change here is Hamish Stuart getting low minutes off the bench. For Jack, similar to Tapine, but Price is getting closer to Joe Taps. Taps is a much better scorer overall over the last few years, especially since de Belin's gone away from that massive minute lock roll, which we saw in like 2023. The good old years where he's 70s and 60 plus for fun. So since that, now he's gone into lower minutes. You can't guarantee these good scores on a regular basis. So he's someone that is just a below average mid pick, where I think you can just wait a little bit, spend up or spend down in like Duncan or something like that, and look towards getting the top tier guns following Origin. Now Preston, different situation for him because he needs probably an injury or two to get into Origin, and is one of the better edge picks, top 2, 59 average type guy, whereas de Belin could be 40 one week, could be 50 the next, could average 45. So you're paying up for someone like Preston, only 140k more. Yes, a different position, but just comparing those two, you're guaranteeing yourself the big tackle numbers and then the odd attack, which he can clearly score tries, as you can see here with the 5 so far in the 10 games or so that he's played. Very, very regularly is in the 50s or the 60s, and then has a 77. So he's awesome. You're going to get. He'll play the rest of the year. And if you need an edge, I would go for him before Eli Katoa, but still are both great picks. You just know you're going to get the base. With Preston, very limited on the negatives and shouldn't be very volatile. So a very easy pick. For Ellie, it's 90k less, but you're also paying for that lower average in total for me, in general for me, in my opinion. 54th average for the year. Yes, he's priced a bit lower, but Preston I think will get closer to 60, and Katoa will be closer to this 54 average. So you're paying for the 5 points extra for Preston for the same run of games. So it's up to you if that extra 90k helps you or not, or if you actually need an edge this week. You could just wait on both of them and decide next week. If there's injuries and whatever else, then that's cool. Jacob Laban. So he's actually earned his way into this starting side the last 2 weeks there. And even with Kurt Capewell returning, he kept the spot, which is the big news here. 39 in 50 and then 63 in 71 minutes. You can see here, even off the interchange bench, generally he can have good games, apart from that 5 in 21 minutes. But with the try last week, it just showed his chops, and they seem to be changing it a bit. With Halasima and Laban both getting opportunities in this spot. So it may not stay longer term, but he's also been the guy touted for this position longer term. And if he can keep the spot, great. But I'd say wait and see, but he's also a decent cash down that if he keeps the spot will be a great option for the rest of the year. But he does miss next week. So that's where I'm saying you could wait and watch, see how it looks, and go from there for Laban. But if you want to jump on, if you're a Waz fan or whatever, and you really like watching him play, then sweet. But I think, it's a risky in a way, not bottom dollar. So that's that. Bill Kicker, Priced at 47, averaging 53. So that's a good part of the story here. The 2 weeks before this big 79 were 43s. So, and that even included a line break try. 14 tackles in that game, which is wild. And a sin bin though, so there's that to keep in mind. He just feels like he's a slightly below tier option. I would personally go for Katoa before I would go for Kikau. And yes, there's a 40-50k difference, but we know long term that Katoa is a better fantasy scorer than Kikau. I do like Kikau as probably more of a super coach play as a pod play. With Kikau there, yeah, he has these good games, but he has 2 scores above 60, 65 and a 79 this year. And he has, 30s, he has a few 40s in his game and then the odd 50. So yeah, I just think there's slightly better options, but a throw at the stumps type of fun play if you want to go there. Now, Britton Nikora at 560k is still in a decent price point that you could jump on. Priced at the 42, we know he can hit 50 plus, and I loved Mitchy Boy just talking him up for days. It was more because of me. Some people are like, oh yeah, he's really talking up Nikora a lot, but it was more just because I talked him down, and he's finally has scored well, because it's been 30s before that. He could definitely go back to that. He has, Melbourne into the bye, so who knows how that's going to look, but he's looked improved over that last 2 weeks with decent tackle numbers in the mid-30s, still missing tackles, but the offloads and tackle breaks have been there with 4 line breaks across the last 2 weeks. So if that doesn't come, we know he'll likely go back to lower scores, but is a guy that you could throw a dart at and try and hit from here on in that he's a 50 average, but we don't know. It's very similar with Hughes right now though. 594k. The good scores are there. There's 2 of them this year, but he has a lot of 40s. And that's why I mentioned last week that it just feels like he's a lot more of a 40s guy this year. Kick meters generally are there, but you saw, early hundreds. We'll see Munster go back to some more kicking this week. A bit of a rest after Origin, which saw Hughes go up into the 500s for the second time this year. So generally, I think Hughes, he could go back to the really high scores, but I'm just not sure if we're going to see it. And he's now priced at 44. So there's a decent chance that you buy him and he continues with this 43 to like 47 average with the odd good game, which could definitely be against the Cowboys the following week, but I don't see it as a huge game or potential for a huge game against the Cronulla Sharks this week. So he's a guy that you can still buy, but it's less of a slam dunk than it may have been at like 530, 540. But you also, had to buy him in anticipation for that big game rather than, following it, which he was 570 odd. So that's Hughes, an interesting one at that. Jamal Fogarty comes in at a decent price now following some lower games, and he got back to goals last week, which was good. So it pushes him back to more normalcy. And you see there from round 12 all the way up to sort of round 4 there, it's been 50 plus every week apart from 148 there. But that 48 is offset by the 73 the week before. So I definitely think he maintains his 55 average for the rest of the year. The only thing to think about is the round 19 and the round 24 bye. That just slows him down a little bit as a really, really good, strong, consistent option for the year. But you also have Hughes as an option. I definitely would go, I think at this price point, I'd still probably try and go Fogarty over Hughes, even with the buys, just for the consistency. And then you've got Latu as well as a cheaper option that could get you through next week. And then maybe you're buying Isaiah Katoa and getting Cleary back or whatever you've got there in that one. So Fogs, interesting as he gets cheaper. Had to mention Jamie Humphreys because he's at 447 now and the team's improving. The kind of only real annoying thing here is the fact that kick meters are well down for him. With when Latrell's away in round 18, Humphreys will play. I had to say that. 530 kick meters in that week for a 46. Last week he picked up a 37, mainly just in tackles. So with him priced at 33, when Latrell's there, he's going to be doing the bulk of the kicking. If Latrell's not there, that's when he becomes more of an option. You can see the 530 kick meters gets him a 49. But when he's lower than that and doesn't kick too much, that's when the low scores come. So I think with Humphreys, keep it simple. If Latrell's injured, Humphreys is a pick. If he's not, then I don't think he is a pick at 447. Had to mention Reynolds because he plays 18-19 as well. averaging 53.6, so a very similar situation to Jamal with the fact that he's been priced down a bit on his average. And you can see the good scores there. 3 50s in a row, mixed in with a 43, 2 more 50s and an 85. So a really good stretch from round 8. Shows he's been about 56, 57 since that time, which means you do have to mention him. And do you want a half like this that hopefully can get through the rest of the season? That's probably more his thing, is the injury and the injury tally, and can he avoid that is probably more the question for A. Reynolds. All right, Kiraz, the biggest buy of the week. The only worry is if there's an injury or to Lomax, to see if he gets in this side. His offloading is off the charts. When you're looking at 2025 as a season, his offload tally is almost at 4. 2024, he had a really good season, but his offloads are at 1.9 to hand, which is pretty crazy, 2.1 overall. And then 2023 only played a few less games, didn't he? He was at 2.1 again. So that's been the big update in 2025. He actually hasn't scored many tries, just the 4 this year. 3 in that game against the Titans, and then the 1 in round 10. So a 0.5 try scoring rate, a 0.6 line break, and also try assist rate shows that it's not like he's been gone crazy. If you spread out those tries, the 3, and he didn't get the 100 and spread those 3 out over 2 other weeks, then other weeks he might have got 60s. And the 102 is like a 70, right? So you can think of it that way if you want. A 0.5 try scoring rate for a winger in a really good team next to Stephen Crichton is not high at all. So people could look at him and go, well, he's maybe a little bit overpriced or close to it based on what we've seen him do in the past, or he's like bang on price. But when you look at the offload increase, basically 7-8 points extra in just offloads, there's the bump from 50 to 57, and it makes sense. So that's where he's a clear buy this week, with hopes that everything goes well. Karapani, had to mention here in the centres, he's slightly out of cash cow range now, but back-to-back weeks since he's returned to the side from last year with a 49 and a 39. Look, priced at 25, I think he has a game or two where he does score 25, especially in games where they lose a few players to Origin, and he misses around 20. He's a fine pick at 331. You probably want to go a little bit cheaper. Do you need a centre? Do you just get like Jed Stuart at a lot cheaper that can, you're only needing him really you might need him this week to get 17 on the park or looping. You'll need a scorer next week, and then it probably doesn't matter from there as to wanting him as a scorer. So do you go cheaper, or do you go for Karapani here, who looks like he's kept the spot and Selwyn's not going to get it back, depending on how bad or good Karapani plays. So a fine pick, but no slam dunk, and a better one in Supercoach. All right, let's get to some of the Manly boys. Ruben Garrick at 575, price point of 43. Got the double last week for a lovely 63, and the last 3 weeks he's scored above that price point. So generally, I think he'll be fine. You look at these tackle numbers. Let's just have a bit of a squiz at it. Tackle numbers this year at 18.5, 2.4 misses. So net tackles there, you're looking at 13.5. So not a crazy amount of points there. The meters gained though at 119. You will see that increase. So let's just go to all games where he's played on the wing. We know that generally it's not a incredible spot there. We actually saw him probably improve moving to centre there, a 38.6 with 124 on the run meter side. But if we look back to 2023, the most recent season there, he averaged 141 meters. So that's where we'd need that bit of an increase. Tackles to missed tackles, he's netting like 1 or 2. So you'd need him to score a few more tries, would be the goal, next to Turbo. I can't really push for him as a buy, but I think as a very easy hold. Hopefully the next few weeks against Tigers and Bunnies can be a fun one for him. That was 2023. 2022 was a 40 average with a 0.9 try scoring rate. So if he can get hopefully up to 140, 150 run meters and score, improve that try scoring rate to a little bit higher than that, that would be the ultimate goal for sure. Because you can see here in this year, in 2025, he's at 0.6. So if we can get that to 0.9 or so, that would help. But we also need the team to play a bit better. So yeah, thought I'd mention him. But we are going to speak about Lehigh and also Tommy Turbo in a second. Tony Staggs at 548. Price at 41, I just find it very difficult to buy him after he's made this big jump in price point there. He was 465 just a few weeks ago, and these last 3 weeks have been really good for him. But you can see here the other weeks are pretty awful. And then 2024, it's lots of 30s mixed in with a couple of decent scores in the 50s and the 60s, which, and then a 91 to finish. So he can have that upside, but we've probably seen a fair bit of it in the last few weeks, and it may not stay. So I can't push him as a purchase at 548. I'd go for any of these other guys that we're just about to speak about, and I would go for Garrick as well before him. Now, Jackie Bird at 312k, to me, he just feels like a wait and watch, see how this week looks, because he does have a 27 in the 80 minutes in the second row this year. He hasn't looked as great at all as an option since he was a back rower in around 2023. In certain weeks there, he played some lock in 2023. So that year was when he was at his best, or some of his best work, and then the last 2 years haven't been as such. He's had opportunities to play decent minutes in that one there in round 5, and then in other rounds in the middle. He just misses a lot of tackles, and I don't see that changing too much on the edge, especially against some better teams to come over the next few weeks. I'd wait and watch. If he plays all right, he looks pretty decent this week, then next week you could jump on as a centre for at least a month or something like that, or as a cash down at near 300k. Good work. The break even's not too low, so generally fine, but I wouldn't push you to buy him this week. We go to Walsh now at 497. Price it at 37 there. We know he's like a 50 guy, generally. 2024, you take out the injury score as well, and he's over 50 for the year with a try a game and 1.3 goals. In 2023, there he's at a 48, so he's completely fine as a pick. You're just hoping that he doesn't play Origin. And if that's the case, then sweet. Pricing at 37, I think he does improve a bit, and the last few weeks since his return, he's looked better. So it's hard to compare him to the start of the season when he looks better and is in form now. So that's what people are jumping on this week, and it completely makes sense. Instead of 54 and 59, I think you get him to about a 48 or 47, which is still 10 points of value. He won't be a top tier keeper for wing fullback, but he could do a job as like a fourth option, which would be fine, which is what people are hoping for with guys like Turbo as well. So I understand the pick. If you don't want to spend too much money at the moment, if you don't like Drinkwater, if you don't like all these types of guys, then completely understand. But there's definitely risks that come with someone like Reece Walsh there. Pappenhausen feels a little bit less risky, given he's got the goal kicking and his team is a decent amount better. I think he has a field day against the Cowboys in that round 18 clash. But yeah, at the moment, you're seeing 30s, you're seeing 40s with him. He's got the ton in there with the 4 tries. But what you're seeing from him is a very high try scoring rate already at 0.9 with 4.2 goals. So do those numbers increase? The try assists are a tiny bit low at 0.3. Tackle breaks are 3.4. Meters gain at 147. It's all just fine. So where is the improvement? Maybe a little bit in try assists, and hasn't scored in the last 4 weeks, so there's something, but he's probably due. I see him as about a 50 guy, 52 maybe, and that bottom tier of fullbacks. So do you want to spend less on Walsh or a little bit more to be safer with Pat? When I say safer, like volatility-wise, they both have injury risk, but yeah, do you want to go down that route? There with one less buy as well. Latrell, 718k, he's going to be someone that you want for the back end of the year, in my opinion. So, kick meters are crazy big at the moment. 625, 660 the last 2 weeks, which is just wild. And we saw last year when he had those decent, 230, 280, 300 and something kick meters, he'd have high 50s, 80, a 99, a 70. Really good games. And we're seeing that here a bit. 87, 65, a 75 in amongst some mid to high 40s. So with their team improving, keep that in mind when you're looking at these wing fullbacks, is that you've got Latrell, who you'll probably want come round 19 or 20 to finish off the year for you. And he's someone on my radar, and he should be on yours as well. Latrell Mitchell. All right, Turbo and Lehigh. So Turbo, it's crazy to see this number at 398. He's almost in cash down or cash out territory. I think he'll do all right at centre here. We'll obviously get some extra tackles for him, which is good. I still think he'll break some tackles. He'll get some line break assists, potentially a try assist to my boy Garrick. That would be nice. The last 2 weeks there, what was really promising was that, he didn't look his best, right? But he ran for 225 and 255 meters. They'll get him footy. He'll have, the extra tackles, hopefully, still a decent amount of runs and in, better attacking ball. And we know he's got good hands, and it's against the Tigers and Bunnies the next 2 weeks. I think he's a pretty good cash down option. Check your round 19 options. And the question's going to be, does, with him and Lehigh, do they actually stay in this position, or does Lehigh get a few weeks, they get through the bye, and then they reconvene and see if Turbo's ready to go at fullback, or if it doesn't work perfectly, they move him back. So they are the questions, and the big question for Lehigh more than anything is, with Turbo under 400k, it doesn't matter too much which position he plays, because he should still do all right enough to be worth it at under 400k, which is crazy. For Lehigh, it's a bit of a bigger question. Price at 38 with the higher break even following the concussion game. He's a player that you need to come out and do pretty well straight away. Like, if you're buying him this week, you need a 50 plus, I think, against the Tigers for it to be worth it, to then have a decent score the following week. And if he's playing well there, then he'll keep the spot, likely longer term. We know for him, he's got about a 44 average at fullback, but he's a player on the rise, which is the big thing for guys like this. It's 39 with the low score, but 44 without. He is coming off 2 really good scores there of 65 and 71 the last 2 times he played fullback, which is great. And if you can get upside scores like that, then awesome. I really like him as an option, but round 19 something to consider, and potential for him to move back to the wing, where we would probably sell him later on down the track. So a fun pick. I like it. He's the pod type of play this week, but is he the right play this week? Now, Latu Fainu at 298k is the cash down of the week. The good thing is he looks like he'll keep this 7 spot now, and he looks really good. That's the big thing over the last few weeks. He's been really aggressive running the footy. Defensively, he looks sound, better than in 2024. Like, he looks like a bigger prospect, and a lot of similarities to Isaiah Katoa in their build, which is really cool. So with those minutes there, 35 and 44, the 2 scores, and I just think he covers all bases without goal kicking. He has an offload, one offload a couple of weeks ago, has a few tackle breaks, has the running game, as well as the defense. So he should be able to average in the mid-30s, I think, pretty comfortably, and being priced at 22 will do a job, can help you as a scorer next week, and you can loop in next week in round 19. The round 23 buy will be fine, so very easy cash down this week. And then Jed Stuart, a 31 for him. It looks like he'll have this spot, and if you just need a cheap guy, you can wait till next week, definitely, with the break even at 12. Like, you can get him at 250 odd K, and even if he scores a 30 or 40 again, and be fine. Paying 250, 260 is not a problem at all. So I see him as an easy wait and see, and then you could buy him as a cash down for sure. Or if you need to free up some cash this week, you don't have Fletcher Sharp, or have that straight swap, and you want to do something with Jed, then that works and preps you a little bit for next week. But personally, I'm going to wait and see with him, see how it all pans out, and make my decisions from there. So there you go, team. That's the best buys for the week for round 17. I hope that was good fun for you guys, and I can't wait to see how this week goes, and we'll see you in a second for the holds and the sells. See you guys.